One of our vehicles went out on a trip, got stolen, got sped in, got slammed into a Mercedes, like a Dodge Sprinter or Mercedes Sprinter, and destroyed. And now that we've settled up with that bill, we went out and we bought another vehicle and have had it on the platform for a year. Today, I want to walk you through, we bought a vehicle for X dollars, we ran it for a year, we made Y dollars out of it. Everyone's always asking, well, how much do you really make on that? And the truth is, the math is complicated and there's a lot of pieces that go into it. So I want to walk you through every single line, not just the numbers, but how I think about the numbers as a guy who started 17 to 30 companies, as a guy who had done financial planning for a decade, right? With my lens, how do I look at the profitability of Turo from our most profitable vehicle of 2024? So this is not all profit. I just need this to be really clear. And this is the area where people who get into Turo get into problems because they don't understand the metrics of the product well enough. And they're not thinking it from a wide enough business angle. And so they don't factor in all the expenses. They're like, hey, I can buy a car for 16 and a half grand and I can make 14 grand a year. That's like infinite money. That's like 100% return. That's your gross return. It's not your net return. So here is a view from the Infiniti QX60, which was our leader last year. This Infiniti QX60 we bought last, I think we bought this with the money from the totaled Mustang convertible. So the Mustang convertible, the white one, that one got destroyed in November, December of 2023. We settled it out. It was like $15,000, $16,000. We settled that out before we got a check. We turned around and decided we didn't want another fast car that could get totaled because someone slammed it into a Mercedes Sprinter or something. And so we said, okay, let's try a third row SUV. We didn't have one in the fleet yet. We had read good things. Our research said that we could probably get a good deal. And so we went out and we found this one, right? So we bought this Infiniti QX60 from the money we had when our white Mustang convertible got totaled. So our Mustang convertible got totaled like end of November, beginning of December of 2023. We went through the whole process of getting that paid out from Turo's protection plan. And then we took that money and we bought this Infiniti QX60 because number one, we thought it was a really good deal. Number two, we didn't have a third row SUV, but all of our research said it might do really well. And number three, we didn't really want another fast car that had the potential of getting stolen and sped and totaled into a Dodge Sprinter or Mercedes Sprinter, whatever that was. And so here's how the QX60 did, the top line numbers, how it did. In January, it did $779. Now that was really low because it was brand new. It didn't have any reviews. It was just a brand new car on Turo. And if I'm totally candid, January in Charleston is like the worst month in Charleston. February, it did a little worse because it's even worse in February. March, it started to heat up. We had some reviews coming in. It started to do pretty well. April, we had a huge spike at the beginning of spring. And then $1,200, $1,600, $1,300, $1,200, $1,000. $900, but we had a big cancellation there. That would have been another $1,300 and then $900 at the end of the year. That's how we got to 14,004. Now, I recorded this previously and I was writing on the screen, but I just decided to make it a little cleaner for you all to see. But out of $14,400, it's important to understand that is not net. Okay? But what we look at is, okay, average, let's see if we can get this math pretty quick. So we were averaging $1,100 a month. That's about right? Average about $1,100 a month for a car that cost us right at $16,000. And when we bought it, it only had like 60,000 miles. We assume that we're going to be able to run these cars until they have about 150,000 miles. That's what we're thinking is our sweet spot to get them off platform. The thing is, you cannot put a Turo car on platform if it has more than 130,000 miles. But as soon as it's on the platform and it's been on its first trip, it can stay on the platform as long as you want. So technically, we could leave this on the platform until it just dies. Might be what we do. It's going to be well and truly paid off by then. And so it's just earning its money. Like $16,000 in, freaking last year it earned $14,000. That's a great gross. Now let's go back and talk nets because really this is a game of nets like tennis. All right, I'm going to edit this for a minute. And my reasoning is when I started this conversation, I started with a completely different car, a 2016 Ford Explorer. And then as the conversation developed, I realized we really should be talking about an Infiniti QX60. But the next portion I'm going to show you is me thinking through all of the expenses that are the same for every car. But you're going to see a random Ford Explorer stuck into this conversation. And it's because I've actually trimmed out all the Ford Explorer stuff except this piece and put it in another video because it's our new leader. But we're going to get to that later once I release that piece. But I still wanted all the thinking through of the expense stack and all the different expenses really described well, which I did on the Explorer piece, not this piece. My apologies. The magic of editing. And so 14,000 is what we're assuming for the Ford Explorer. 14,000 is what we're assuming. Our estimate is low there. We're going to come in a little higher, maybe 15 and a half, maybe 16 grand a month on the high side. That means we're saying, hey, let's assume we're going to end up, and it's probably because our day rate's a little higher than this. Let's just adjust that up a tiny bit. 15.9, nah, that's a little too high. Let's say it's 15 grand a month, or 1,500 bucks a month is our number. So we make 1,500, and then Turo takes their 150, they're 10%. So we net 13, okay? Then we get into some math for some assumptions, okay? I have done assumption math on Turo until I'm blue in the face. You can do assumption math on Turo until you're blue in the face. I have read at least 50 articles about how to calculate depreciation in a rental fleet. The bottom line is when you drive a car off the lot, it has depreciation. Now, it doesn't lose half its value. That's a wives' tale that's kind of total crap, but it's said all the time, so people believe it. What really happens is when you drive a car off the lot, it loses in the first year like 15% of its value or 20% of its value. And when you drive a car off the lot day one, it loses like 5 to 10% of its value because it's no longer a new car, it's a used car. And then in the first 5 years, they drop out 15% a year or 20% a year. Or if you're buying something super expensive, it can be insane. Like brand new, what's really unreliable, a Maserati, a brand new Maserati Ghibli, right? $150,000 off the line. 5 years later, $70,000, half the value, right? 20% per year for 5 years or whatever the crap. And there are other cars that depreciate worse. When you're talking this, like Ford Explorer 2016, there was not a lot of margin in there for like fatty profit to begin with. And so what we do on this car is we just say it's going to be 10% straight line depreciation per year. I'm comfortable with that. And so when it comes to that, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to assume 10% straight line depreciation per year off a purchase price of 12,000, 1,200 gives me a depreciation reserve that I'm doing. I'm saying this car is losing $1,200 of value a year. If I sell it next year, I won't be able to sell it for 12.2. I'll be able to sell it for 11 flat. And as long as I'm factoring that into my math, I won't be super offended and broke when I sell it and it sells for less. I have to be factoring something. I like the 10% on this car. That's what we factored in. And then we do some more complicated math around, okay, we're having to pay to drop the car off at the airport. We're having to pay to get our people back from the airport. We're having to pay parking when we're at the airport. We're having to pay parking when we come out of the airport. We're just going to assume that an airport trip costs me and my staff $60. At the Charleston airport, we're operating so close, and we prefer airport travelers because they tend not to be the crap out of our cars so much or smoke as much in our cars. So we're saying, hey, there's going to be $60 of expenses that we incur that we don't recover above and beyond. We're not charging an airport delivery fee to Charleston. We're just going to assume that's happening a third of the time. And so we're just going to factor in 20 bucks per trip on all trips, just so we're taking some money out of the top line to say, hey, we are spending some money on airport delivery fees. We are spending some money on that. It's not happening all the time. We're just trying to factor in what amount is really being expressed that way in our system. Okay, repair estimates. We're saying $200 a month in repairs to keep this vehicle on the road. We've got a big, complicated formula on how we calculate repairs, but this one is coming back out of the formula and saying 200 bucks a month, $2,400 a year to keep this car on the road. 7 trips a month, we need to factor out about 30 bucks per trip of just normal repairs. Uber to the airport, Uber from the airport, parking fees at the airport, car payments. On this product, I'm paying 8% on this loan. It's a small business. My lenders here in this let me go in and out of cars with impunity. I knew I could get to 10%, even though it was a new business and new businesses have a high probability of failure. My lenders were comfortable lending at 8% on this. We're making a little bit better than that, but I saw some long-term benefits. For example, we're just launching a product where we help investors buy 3 or 4 cars at a time for the mileage write-off. The mileage write-off on Turo cars is amazing. And so if you're ever interested in getting into Turo, but you don't want to run it, you just want to have a team that does it, do it, just feel free to DM us. We offer that service. If you ever want to own a Turo car, feel free to DM us. We can chat about that. So the car payment on that, 80 bucks a month at 8%, right? If you own a car outright, you would just net that. Car insurance per month is 110 bucks. We use ABI for our car insurance. That is probably the number one question that people ask when they get into Turo is, hey, who do you use for car insurance? We've used a lot of people. We've used State Farm, we've used Liberty Mutual, we've used ABI, we've used Lula. Lula, I think, went under. It got real sketchy before it went under ABI. We have them, we use them. We've never had a claim with them. I can't really tell you how good they are. We pay our money to them. We've never had to use them. And it's because ABI only covers the vehicle while it's on the lot and while it is being driven by one of my employees. Period. It's like the cheapest insurance you can imagine. They don't cover it when it's on a Turo trip because Turo's policies cover it when it's on a Turo trip. And so ABI's policies, we're only going to cover it when your people are driving it and when it's sitting on your lot. For 110 bucks a month, that's a lot. Turo has their own alternative to ABI that's called Tint. We have done bids with Tint, and it looks like they're about 130 to 150% more expensive than ABI. However, ABI, American Business Insurance, you cannot use them unless your fleet is, I think, over 4 or 5 cars. You've got to have a fleet to use ABI. Where Tint, I'm pretty sure you can just hop on with one car. And so I think they're pricing it higher, number one, because it's the Turo sponsored insurance. So Turo, I think it's a cut probably. And number two, they're working with smaller fleet sizes. So there's more administrative headache with a guy who has one car than there is administrative headache for a guy who has 21 cars. And so I think that kind of represents some of the price differences between ABI and Tint. And so anyways, $110 a month is how much we're paying for that car. State vehicle property tax. In South Carolina, you have to pay property taxes on vehicles once a year. That's freaking dumb, but it's how it is in South Carolina, 300 bucks a year. State vehicle registration is per year. We're breaking all of these out in per trip, but really we just need to know all the things. $34 a month, $34.99 is the amount we pay to wash that car at the car wash as many times as we want. We end up taking it through the car. We'll car wash like 7 to 12 times a month. Now, I will do another video where I walk through intimately every single expense of this. That's not the purpose of this video. It's just to give you a high level, hey, here's what we made, here's how much it cost us. But some things to consider. So this is not all profit. I just need this to be really clear. And this is the area where people who get into Turo get into problems because they don't understand the metrics of the product well enough. And they're not thinking it from a wide enough business angle. And so they don't factor in all the expenses. They're like, hey, I can buy a car for 16 and a half grand and I can make 14 grand a year. That's like infinite money. That's like 100% return. That's your gross return. It's not your net return. What you have to understand if you're going to get into the Turo game is there's a lot of expenses that come off this. The thing that's really important to understand is that even though this car is grossed last year $14,144, you are not going to net $14,144. That's your gross. The biggest place that people get in trouble with Turo is they think, hey, I'm going to spend $16,500 on this vehicle, and I'm just going to turn around and earn $14,000 a year, and I'm going to keep all that money. That is because they don't understand all the costs that go into running a business. Let's put some of those on the board for you. Okay. Let's say our total investment is $16,500, right? And let's just subtract off the things that are obvious. Number one, staff costs per vehicle per month. We are probably talking about your staff cost to turn over a vehicle somewhere between $200 and $250. for all the cleaning and all the washing and all the driving and to the mechanic and calling Turo and working through problems when problems happen. Hey, my car got wrecked. They need a title. Going to the DMV, getting it registered, paying fees. I'm saying about $200 a month, $250 a month. So we're going to say 250 bucks a month times 12, 3 grand a year. That's the operational expense to keep a Turo car running, something like that. On top of that, you have your depreciation. Now, depreciation's complicated. I'm not going to get into it. For a car of this year, make and model, I would say it's about 10% per year off your purchase price. We can argue about that all we want, but that's what I'm going to say for this car, this year, make and model. So I'm going to say purchase price times zero point 0.1, 1,600 bucks a year. Beyond that, and I'm pulling this all from a much more complicated formula, but I want to make this as simple as humanly possible so you can just see it and be with me. Repairs. I'm going to say repairs on a car like this represent $200 a month for tire, oil changes, and any other ancillaries that happen to pop up. Plus, when your car is in for repairs, it's not earning. And on this estimate, I was saying that we're expecting the car to be working 25 days out of the month. So I'm not showing utilization dropping off if the car is being repaired. So I'm going to say $200 a month or $2,400 a year, just so I have like an accurate repairs and non-utilization estimate. Airport parking, getting my car in and out of the airport. We average about $140 a month in airport parking fees in and out just for a single car going in and out of the airport every single time, paying airport parking fees. Let's call it 1,600 bucks a year. Car insurance. For a car like this, we're paying $110 a month with ABI. Now, that's one of the most common questions we get on Turo. Hey, how does this work as far as car insurance? We'll do a separate video on ABI. Bottom line is we've used ABI, we've used ABI, Liberty Mutual, we've used State Farm, we've had quotes from Tint, and we've used Lula, all in the 2.5, 3 years we've done this. I'm gonna say car insurance is about 1,300 bucks. Okay. So with that being the case, let's say car insurance, there's state property taxes, there's state vehicle registration. Now in South Carolina, there's property taxes, which is about 300 bucks a year. In South Carolina, there's vehicle registration, which is 150 bucks a year. We pay $34 a month for car washes. We're paying $34.99 for a membership for this car, and then that's going to multiply clearly by 12 months in the year. So we're paying 500 bucks a year for the car washes. Our staff costs are already factored in, 150 bucks. Deductibles. You're gonna have damage on a Turo car. It's just gonna happen. This year we've eaten a $2,500 deductible 3 times, once a month. Just happens. You've got to factor it in, or you're going to end up with way less money than you anticipated having. You've just got to factor in that you will eventually be on the wrong side of the math and someone will ding up your car, they'll back into something, and you're going to have to eat a deductible. We figure we're going to pay a deductible of $750 per car per year, maybe $1,000 per car per year. We have to park our vehicles outside of the airport. They're not just there 24/7. Almost every airport has limited the amount of time a Turo vehicle can be on property to 4 hours before the Turo trip occurs. And so you have to pay for parking, or you have to park them in your own driveway. And if you have 21 vehicles, that's going to be a lot of cars in your driveway. So parking, we pay $1,200 a year for our parking spaces for this car. And then on top of that, you have your loans. All right. We pay 8% to our lenders for cars that we have on Turo. We're allowed to move in and out of those. If you're ever interested in this, feel free to call us. Like, we're happy to expand the fleet. There's some incredible mileage deductions that you can take. That's the reason I have Turo. I like the cash on cash. I like the deductions. I'll be perfectly candid. It's a diversified position in my portfolio. We have a lot of real estate with Bedrock. We have a lot of real estate with our rehab company. We have Airbnbs. I wanted a diversified cash on cash position with the sweet deduction. And Turo does that for me. It does that for my wealth. And the truth is, it's easy to set up and it's fairly easy to manage. But the loans, I'm going to say, is 8%. So we're just going to say is the purchase price times 0.08 $1,300 a year. You will see that that's about it. I've plussed up these numbers as much as I can. And so you'll see that, hey, even though that's a little high, which ones have I overstated? Depreciation, that's pretty accurate. Repairs, that's probably a little bit high. Airport parking, that might be a little bit high. Car insurance. Oh yeah, airport parking isn't being offset by our delivery fees. I think we have a delivery fee at airport for $60. So that's got to come down $80. Car insurance, 110, that's pretty accurate. Those are accurate. Car wash, that's accurate-ish. We're actually working on reducing those fees. Deductibles, that's fairly accurate. Parking, I pay less than that. I pay about $1,000. Parking loan at 8%, that's pretty accurate. So 13 too. And so we're saying that our total ROI for that year, cash on cash return is $1,000 for the year is what I'm going to net. Now there's some things in here that matter. If this is your Turo business, you're keeping the $3,000. So as long as you're able to operate your fleet at sub $250 per car per year, that's a lot of where people are paying themselves. But I'm not operating the fleet myself. I'm paying people. And if I'm totally candid, I plussed up that 250 number because if you call me and you're like, hey, I want the price you pay your staff without any profit being involved in there, I'm going to say $250 per car per year. And that's where I'm going to tell you. And I don't want to underquote that, but it certainly doesn't cost me that much exactly. It's close to that, but there's a little bit of profit baked into that. If you were saying, hey, how much does it really cost Jeremy to do this? He's really paying like $150 to $200 a month. So let's just say, hey, we're really talking like what is it? $170 a month is what we're really paying in those. So our cash on cash return after everything you're seeing in this example, and this isn't a great example because this is saying, hey, the car came on in January and then it was on for the year. It probably had some damage. This was probably a damaged chunk. February wasn't a good month. It didn't have any reviews. So it's not even the best single year a car can have, but $1,800, if it's $1,800, so our cash on cash ROI, $1,800 divided by our total vehicle investment is saying that we're going to net out on this car about 11%. Keep in mind that is including all of our staff costs or paying yourself. Keep in mind that is saying that we borrowed at 8% for this, so we've got a loan on this car. If this was just my car, free and clear cash, and if I was managing this fleet myself, I could really easily say, okay, I'm going to pay myself the $2,000 a year per car, and I'm going to pay myself the loan. So as a cash on cash return, if I was managing the fleet for myself, I would be looking at kind of a 31% ROI. I'd be holding on to $5,000 out of $14,000 of returns. Those are real numbers. Now, if I was having other people manage the fleet for me and it was a cash car, right? I could say, okay, if it was a cash car, I could just plus this up and say, hey, I'm making 19% cash on my Turo fleet. I'm factoring in repairs. I'm factoring in damage. I'm factoring in everything I can factor in. And I'm still making about 20% cash on cash per year. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing, hey, there's money to be made even if you have a loan. There's money to be made specifically if you're doing the work. If you just want to do this as a career, there's money to be made there because you can just pay yourself that $2,000. And on my 21 car fleet, if you pay yourself about $2,000 a year to do all the work, then you're saying, hey, I've got 50 grand a year. That's not worth the time I would invest if I was doing this, if I was flipping these cars myself. But you could easily create for yourself an income of $40,000, $50,000 a year, even if you were borrowing at 8%. And even if you had the same exact expense stack all the way up, this car, I think very realistically, can create another $1,800 a year in your life. It can create a 10, 11% ROI, even while maintaining its debt. I think that's a very reasonable number. What we're seeing is that without debt, a typical Turo car should be in the 10 to 25% ROI number. And that's what I want to share today. A simple Turo car can make good money, but you have to realize that anyone saying you're going to earn 70, 80% just isn't factoring in all the expenses that actually come from running this style business. I like Turo. It's been good for me. It's a great diversified position, but I like Turo because I have income and I offset a lot of my income with the mileage deduction, which we're going to get into in another video. And to do that, you have to do some really specific things. You have to keep your fleet size smaller than 5 cars, and you have to claim your expenses in a very specific way. And then you can write off your mileage. And what I like about that is you can write off your mileage forever. Instead of a straight line depreciation which ends at 5 years, you can write off your mileage year after year. And that's what my investors like about this. They like that they can get themselves a really good mileage deduction and a 10 to 20% return, cash on cash. And we factored in kind of every expense that there is in a Turo car. But on this one Turo car for this 1 year, we bought it for 16,500. We brought in that year 14,100. We paid all of our bills, and we were left over at the end of the year with about $2,000 richer because we did what we did. Those numbers can adjust, as I've said, based on your staff costs, based on how every single one of these expenses is going to be, based on your loan long term. So that is, we bought a Turo car for this much. This is how much it made us. All right, if you enjoyed that long conversation talking about all the expenses and how we think through running a Turo business as far as revenue and expenses, my guess is you're going to love this video right here. Turo's insurance is not insurance. We do the same exact thing, but we walk through the specifics of what the Turo protection plan is, how it differs from insurance, and what you should really expect when it comes to damage to your vehicle, car accidents, and the way we think through which protection plan we chose. I think that's absolutely the next one you want to watch, just right there. Thanks for watching.